All right, folks, we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone, to a rather unique event that we're going to have here at the Berkshire Museum tonight. We had over 300 registrations. It's a great turnout. And before we begin tonight's tour, our Executive Director, Jeff Rodgers, would like to say a few words. So I'm going to hand it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Craig. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Berkshire Museum, or the virtual museum that we built to host events like this. I see that about 150 of you are with us right now, which is pretty exciting and pretty strange to be talking to all of you from my office. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are to celebrate the opening of Art of the Hills narrative. We felt that it was very important to open this exhibition on time, even if it was virtually, to remind us of the remarkable talent, creativity, and art that in a large part makes the Berkshires so special. We have virtually all of the artists with us here tonight. I'd like to start by thanking all of you. Tonight is really about your work. I want to thank you for doing what you do and for giving us a reason to come together tonight for a happy occasion. Over the past 3 months, the museum has, like most all of us, pivoted to online experiences so that we could continue to deliver our mission. It was with the support of our board of trustees and a staff that has worked tirelessly that we've been able to remain open online and to continue to support the needs of our community. You've all been working too. I want to thank the Art of the Hills Committee for the months of work that you put in to make this exhibition happen. Adrian Holmes, Helen Febo, Ronald Piazza, Denise Roskowski, Mark Tomasi, Eileen Spiewak, and Missy Scarafoni. Thank you for all the work that you did to help us shape this exhibition. We're also honored to have Lee Bank as the sponsor of this event, even if this isn't how we all imagine the opening of Art of the Hills. Chuck Leach and his team's dedication to our community makes the Berkshires a better place every day. They've been very supportive of the museum and of many other worthy organizations and causes in our community for a long, long time. So thank you, Chuck. Thank you to Lee Bank for helping to make tonight possible. I'd also like to recognize our exhibition manager, William Dore, for creating this full-scale museum model that you are inside of right now to house our first exhibition. We hope to do future experiences like this. The speed with which our team adopted new technologies and adapted to the way we do our work in recent months has been nothing short of amazing to me, and I want to recognize all of the Berkshire Museum staff for their remarkable ability to innovate and adapt under challenging conditions. And challenging really does seem to be the order of the day lately. I've been very proud as a new Berkshires resident to see how this community pulled together to flatten the curve, how we're doing our part to support local businesses. And I'm also proud of the way that our community has responded to the death of George Floyd, the protests for justice that have followed and continue. Black Lives Matter, and the museum is committed to working to making ourselves better and being part of the changes that need to happen now. I'd also like to thank Bright Ideas. That's our premier beer partner for tonight and for the 2020 season. I wish that we could have some way to do a virtual pint from Bright Ideas. We're going to find a way to get together with Bright Ideas soon. We're working with them now to develop an interactive think and sip beer tour that we're going to roll out in the coming weeks. So make sure that you sign up for our email list and follow us on social media so you don't miss that opportunity to drink some beer online with us and Bright Ideas. And now, the exhibition. Art of the Hills narrative features 78 works by 64 artists, and it was thoughtfully curated from a collection of more than 530 works that were submitted. Our jurors, Seung Lee and Amy Myers, who are here with us tonight, really embraced the narrative theme in similar ways, but unique to themselves. Seung sought pieces that viewer a story using features such as characters, themes, time, techniques, purpose, with an emphasis on skillful interpretation of a perceived concept. while Amy reviewed the works from the standpoint of time and wonder, selecting pieces that left her with a question or some curiosity rather than a conclusion. Our work here tonight and moving forward is represented in the type of thing that you're going to see here tonight. We will innovate, we will continue to try and make interesting things happen to you, even in circumstances like this. This work would not be possible without your generous support. Everyone who's here tonight, our members, our donors, I would implore you to consider making a gift to the Berkshire Museum today. You'll have an opportunity at the end so that we can continue serving our community when it really needs us. Be a part of our narrative. Become a member, donate to our annual appeal, connect with us on social media to keep up with what we're doing. We anticipate opening this exhibition live in October, and I cannot wait to welcome you back to the physical museum again very, very soon. But for tonight, I'm truly grateful that you're here with us for the virtual opening of Art of the Hills. Greg, let's go see the exhibition.
Thank you so much, Jeff. All right. So like Jeff mentioned, this is a completely virtual environment. A couple things I want to mention about this program is, one, we are recording, and a version of this will be posted at explore.berkshiremuseum.org next week. And as you guys have already figured out, this is a really fun program. A really cool feature is that we are not on a predetermined guided tour. We are free to move about the space as we see fit. Which is really cool because we will be adding a web-based version of this exhibition to that same website, explore.berkshiremuseum.org, which will allow everyone who visits to navigate the show on their own. I too would like to thank all the submitting artists and congratulate the artists who were selected. This is our first virtual exhibition, and we have big plans for this space over the next few months. And finally, before we head upstairs, I want to welcome our two jurors, Amy Myers and Seung Lee. Seung and Amy, this has been quite the unique experience, and I want to thank you for your willingness and flexibility to meet, work, and present in this virtual environment. So if you wouldn't mind, could you both take about a minute to sort of introduce yourselves to the audience and give a little bit of your background? Amy, if you would like to go first.
Sure. Okay. My name is Amy Myers, and first I want to thank Craig and the entire Berkshire Museum community for extending the invitation to curate this show. I fell in love with the work. It was really a wonderful experience for me. So I want to thank Craig really for including me. I appreciate it very much. I'm a visual artist. I live and work in New York City. I recently had a solo exhibition of my large scale drawings at the Berkshire Museum last summer. And that was a phenomenal experience for me to be able to see all of 4 of my major works in one space at one time. I recently closed a solo show of painting oil on canvas in Chelsea, New York in November with an outstanding review and art forum, which I'm very happy about. And I'm currently working on a new body of show, and I'm going to have a solo show in Detroit this year as well as Dallas. So that's what I'm working towards at the moment. And I'm extremely happy to be here with all of you tonight. So thank you again.
Thank you, Amy. Seung, do you want to bring us up to speed on what you've been working on?
Okay, thank you so much. I have been showing internationally, and this COVID has been fantastic for me to stay home, not to stay still for a while. So anyway, thank you, Craig, for Reconnect, and thank you for the museum for giving me an opportunity to look at so many great work. I have been judging art shows for the last 20 years, at least 2-3 times, nationally, internationally. And I saw so many beautiful work. I wish we can put everybody's work in there. But anyway, congratulations to one who accepted. Our spirit got connected that day when I was looking at it. And if your work is not accepted, you probably is a great artist, because it is sometimes we cannot connect with very as much as we try to be objective, but always personal subjective choices comes into play. So don't get discouraged, keep plug along. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm looking forward to see the show.
All right. Well, thank you, Seung. And let's head on upstairs. So for those of you who have visited the Berkshire Museum before, this is an exact replica
Wow.
of our staircase. Now, as we come up the stairs here, look what we have. We have a wonderful selection of some virtual beverages. We always like to offer some food and drink at these events. So I hope you all are somewhere comfortable with your beverage of choice and possibly a light dinner as we tour around. Thank you all for joining us. And as Jeff mentioned before, we're looking at interesting ways to sort of pair food and wine and art in this virtual environment. So more on that in the coming weeks. So let's head on in to our virtual experience.
Oh.
All right. So, like many museums, one of the things we do at the Berkshire Museum is think about the physical space in relationship to context or narratives we have on display. Many times this includes building walls and partitions within the space. One of the conversations and concepts we wrestled with was what would be the best layout in this virtual world, and what would create the best viewing, lighting, and navigation, which is how we ended up with the decision not to partition the space. What's really interesting and exciting is that when we open the physical show in October, it will look completely different. So we have the opportunity to play with the concept of narrative in a couple different ways. We have a virtual world that we can play with, and then we have our physical world that we can play with. So let's begin, right? I have a few questions for Amy and Seung, and then we're going to open up it to questions in the audience. If you would like to ask a question, please type it into the chat function, and we will get to as many of those as we can as time allows. So Amy and Seung, are you guys ready?
Sure.
All right, so let's go to the first piece. Stop right about there. And we are looking at Barbara Patton's triangular Sagar-fired vessels. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about these pieces here and their role that medium played in your decision-making. Some of you might know that ceramics is an art form that is near and dear to me. Few mediums express a relationship between form, implied function, and functionality as ceramics can. However, we are in a juried show looking at the relationship of work to the concept of a narrative. And I was wondering if you both can discuss or maybe unpack a little bit the relationship of a medium or a media in your selection process. You both selected these pieces. Did the medium of ceramics play a role in the selection of these works, and how does media impact your thought process in selecting all of these works? Amy, do you want to respond first?
Sure, of course. Well, thank you. I remember when I first saw these works and had an immediate connection with them. I had an immediate kind of response in terms of the narrative. And one of the criteria that I used for narrative was also kind of a sense of an internal narrative. Like, you know, there's like the external, which is like a time-based, you know, event kind of situation. But for me, I was thinking more about like an internal experience, maybe more of a non-linear experience. And so bringing that to this work, I just felt this immediate kind of spark of a sense of narrative. I have an interpretation of them being like vessels or containers, and also the medium of ceramics itself. I think it's so rich, and it has a directness that sometimes two-dimensional work doesn't have. And so I immediately kind of had ideas of internal narratives, and the surfaces and the shapes are so kind of lovely and seductive. I just kind of fell in love with it.
Great. Seung, anything you would like to add?
I would like to add, because being an Asian background, I always looked at ceramic as a part of our culture, and having this functional object becoming This is a functional object that can be in the museum, and especially this piece. When I first encountered, I was throwing questions like, is the first thing I was asking was it functional or non-functional? It's just decorative, but the material I was questioning was that got me really interested. It said I can recognize some of the lines and some of the color, what made those, but that's what thing that intrigued this piece, or we're not knowing how much art to control and how much that art to let go of that control to make this piece. That I was just connected that way. Because every art making process is about the controlling and letting go that control, just like in life. So I really connected narrative that way.
Great. Thank you both. All right. So we're going to move on to another work of arts, and we're actually going to leave this gallery and head into the larger gallery. Well, I'll stop for a second and do another slow pan so you guys can get a sense of the layout as a whole. And like I said, this will be available for anyone who wants to sort of navigate on their own in the coming weeks. So we're going to head over to one of the larger pieces in the exhibition. Kind of frame us up here, and we'll come back to the size of the piece in a moment, but we're looking at Julie Dixon's "What Will Be, Will Be," and I want to talk a little bit about titles. And when you were selecting works, the only information you were given was an image, the title, and the size. And like I said, we'll kind of come back to size in a minute, but I want to ask you about the influence of titles on the selection process. Personally, I'm always torn on this topic. Good art should be able to stand on its own, but when you get to a piece like this, where you can see skill and technique, and then you throw the title into the mix, and it kind of twists your perception a little bit of the intent or its narrative. I almost feel like titles become a form of biological nomenclature, where a good painting is a good painting in the same way that a bird is a bird. But if you name it or you identify it as X, Y, or Z, it creates a sense of connection or even rarity. And in particular, this case, this is the only one of its kind. Can you speak a little bit about the relationship of title of the work as you are selecting works? And Seung, if you would like to go first this time.
I have to say, I was just intrigued by the skillful, just like you mentioned. But title wasn't. I always try to not look at the title. I look at the painting first. But when I look at the title, yes, it does make. Sometimes it helps give more hint. This painting, especially, I thought with what we are going through now, with all the pandemic, it's kind of interesting to see that little baby is the one who paying more attention than the dad or the person, the man who have a knife on it. I would just keep looking at that baby's face, and that's a question I have been asking all this pandemic. What are we leaving for our younger generation? And that baby just tell that whole story. And just like a Picasso's Guernica, this piece is just amazing that it captures the violence, the war, or whatever we are going through. But it gave you the hope with the baby's face or a little bit of sky up the top, that little bluish sky out of just darkness and violence and blood. So I really, this piece is really capturing my feeling of today's society really well.
Amy, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, the title, what I thought was curious about the title of this piece in relationship to the image is that it's very skillfully and very carefully, kind of meticulously constructed. There's a lot of care, and it feels like it took a certain amount of time. And then the title, whatever will be, is almost this kind of laissez-faire. So it's almost like this bit of a contradiction, like this bit of tension set up between those two elements. And what I think are what's most successful about titling is when a title doesn't necessarily describe an artwork. It's more when it becomes more of like a signifier or an indication of something, or somehow plays with the imagery so that it can produce another layer of meaning or another layer of feeling. Enjoyed about this was that kind of contradiction, which enabled me then to step more into the space of wonder. Like I was like, oh, well, what do you mean? You know, whatever will be, will be. So I feel like it was very successful in this piece, the way the artist used the title as a layer, not just like a description or, you know, a descriptor.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy. We will move on. So we're going to head back to the first gallery. And we're going to go from one of the largest pieces to one of the smallest.
I remember all of this work. I know all this work. I'm like, oh yeah, there's.
I didn't know you were that small.
Yeah, so this is Jen DiGallo's first day. And I want to talk about size and volume a little bit. So size of the work was one of the pieces of information that was supplied. How much did size play a role in your selection process? And also, how about the volume of work? To catch up the audience here, Amy and Seung looked at this work independently. They both selected works, and then the museum cross-referenced their selections to narrow the field down to what we see here. So what was interesting is that you both, you know, selected basically the same number of works independently without seeing the space. So did you weigh the value of more pieces or less pieces in creating the vision for your show? How did size play a role in your selection process? Amy, if you would like to go first.
Okay. Well, first of all, I remember when I first saw this work, and I have to say, size did play a consideration in my work. I did look at the size, the title, and the image, and I was really this feels. The size of it feels like this handheld, just like jewel. There's like such an intimacy and like a tenderness with this piece. And I like how with small work, you're kind of forced to like walk up to it and like stick your face in it, you know? And to me, that's a very intimate act to be like that up close to an object. And also just the way that I can tell how the pen touched the paper in like this very kind of methodical, soft way. I feel like it's a very intimate object. And so I appreciate like certain, you know, pieces have different like layers of reeds, like really big work. You need, you know, a lot of distance, but these small things can really just pull you and just suck you in. And it's so convincing. It's just like, I'm in this world. I completely believe it and absolutely love it. So that's how I do. Size is important, I think.
Thank you, Amy. Seung, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think I agree with you because I did looked at the size, because to make a good show, I have to think about the different sizes, different materials, and some mixture of 2Ds and 3Ds. And I look at artwork, best artwork as possible, but also I have to be conscious of the size to fit in, curate the show. And this piece, I really thought, even though it's small, it does have this monumental quality to it. Last piece was giant. It was about the father and child. This piece is making me feel like it's a mother and child, almost like mother giving birth, and it's connected with the DNA, with the hair, and it's just amazing how this simple work looks so huge to me. That's what I like about it. It's so universal that we all go through, how the mother's care of the child. And mother is so grounded, so heavy feeling, and child is so chill in the air, airy, but it's connected with the hair. So it was a kind of a really interesting piece that way.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And before we move on, do you mind getting a little closer, Craig, just to get a slightly better view for you? Oh.
All right, so I'm gonna back out, and we're gonna go to sort of a pan shot of this back wall. And my final question for Amy and Seung is around what I would refer to as image fatigue. We had over 500 works submitted for consideration, and I'm pretty comfortable with stating that nearly 2/3 of submitted work fell into more of a literal translation on the narrative theme as either a landscape or a portrait. Now, there's some regionality in play here given our location, but can you speak to selecting within these two subgenres that sort of dominated the submission pool? Seung, if you would go first, please.
Is I think what we were going through this time really affected me on choosing more so than like what material, what local or in the global. It just seems to be very dictated by the whole situation we are going through. Because to me, that's what artist's job is throughout the history. We are the record of history in our own way about the recording what happened today for the future generation visually. So I was looking at a lot of pieces as not just locally, but very like universal term in a lot of selecting these pieces. And I don't really see, I try not to separate like a local view versus a universal view. So it was really wonderful to look at all different types of work. Some are, yes, just like Long Island, where I'm from, where I'm living, we have a lot of seascapes because we are surrounded by the ocean. And it's just very natural because we are in this environment. So I saw a lot of landscape, beautiful mountain, the farmland. So it's just natural to me. It didn't really affect it one way or another.
Amy, anything you would like to add?
I'll just add that I think I was struck. I don't know. I remember when I first went through the images, I remember just being struck by how do I say it? This is hard to describe. I had an emotional reaction to just the I don't know it's going to sound a little corny, but I could just kind of feel the love coming through the work. Like the work it feels so like wonderful and sincere. And I didn't really like distinguish between like landscape, portrait, and abstract art. Like I brought the same kind of criteria to all the pieces. And I was just floored by like how like beautiful and how like the mark making and the use of color and the forms. I mean, whether it was abstract, landscape, 2D, 3D, I mean, the sensibility was so high, like the level was so high. At some point, I just didn't even really like separate. I guess like Seung was talking about, I didn't really separate it. It kind of melded all together. And I have to say, I love a lot of this work. I'm really impressed by it.
All right. Well, thank you. So at this point, we're gonna move to some works that Amy and Seung have selected that they wanted to talk about. This is a good opportunity for us who are listening to start thinking about questions you want to ask Amy and Seung. They can be put right into the chat, and once we get through this section, we will start to move to those questions. So we're gonna come to our first work, which is Old Woman Laughing by Robert Markley. And Seung, do you wanna start us off here?
Yes, I mean, I just love this piece because where I'm from, there's a lot of Asian older ladies. They do not like taking pictures. So this is exactly, but they are laughing. They're not really laughing. It's like their shyness with the camera shy. And I can really associate that. And it's so capture that what this person was painting so well, because the way the pose, at first you will say, yes, this person probably doesn't have a teeth, they are trying to cover herself, but this is the Asian culture that it captured the cultural difference of camera shy of this elderly woman so well. And these have a lot of, if you look at contemporary portraits, a lot of famous contemporary Chinese portrait artists are from Asia, like Chinese painter who does the, you probably noticed, he's been showing a lot, he's selling a lot, very successful. The Laughing Man series, Yu Minjun, and it's like almost reversal of him, the man who's like Asian man who's just out there. But then here's Asian woman who's very reserved. So it's just like so beautifully done to capture using the technique. Obviously, the well done technique is great, color and everything. But the overall feeling of capture of this woman was just so touching to me. So I love this piece.
Amy, anything you would like to add?
I love that too. I love like the way her hands are articulated, just like the care that has gone into, just, the overall like form making. I see this as such a, like a portrait of joy. And I love like it's on like a dark background. I like that it's not like in a landscape because it really focuses your attention on the figure and the expression in the figure. And I think that if it were like background, like a landscape, it might take your attention off the figure. So I like how it's really like focused and centralized, which like I think accentuates the expression.
Great. Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on, and we don't have to go very far because the next piece that was selected is Eileen Spiewak's. They are strangely settled and ready, are they? So Amy, would you like to share any thoughts on this work?
Yeah, I love this piece. The first thing that struck me about this piece was the white of the teacups, and then that kind of like peachy light color right next to it, and then that like flat gray with the beige. I feel like the colors are so they're like in a small range, but yet they're working really effectively and really strongly. Like I get this sense of light, of softness. I like how the base is like a flat kind of beige, and then you have these like beautiful kind of elliptical peachy shapes that have modulation inside of them, and they're just like nestled and snuggled with these little cups. And I feel like it's so gentle and coloristically. I mean, it's like food. It's like, ice cream or something. I feel like it's just luscious in its coloration.
Seung?
I agree with you because when I first looked at the color, they're just so, I see it as a two human figure, almost like a Francis Bacon type of, like a figure with the big background. Or then I looked at it closely, that I see a lot of like a very quick kind of gesture lines, charcoal lines still showing, coming through. And that's when I said, whoa, this is kind of strange that I see two of my favorite artists coming in one. The Francis Bacon, like figurative artists I love. Then I have this, one of my favorite still life painter, Giorgio Morandi. Italian, yeah. And so it's like so beautifully executed, such a simple 2 cups, but giving me so much like feelings and narratives. And I was kind of really getting to, and also how quick those marks were. Then the color mixing is so sensitive. I, this is beautifully done.
All right, thank you both. All right, so we're gonna move on right around the corner. To Sally Eagle's Gravedigger Cuba. And Seung, would you like to start us off this time?
Wow. Like I said earlier, it's just, I'm so, so into now with the pandemic. When I saw this piece and the title, I was like, oh my gosh, because it just, the position of it, so core, isolation. The title is the grave digger. Oh man, you can, I know it's from totally different country, but it just captures, it can be anywhere, what's going on in nowadays. So I thought no matter how much I try not to affected by how I feel on what I'm going through, but this piece really, one of another piece that just got me.
Amy, anything you'd like to add?
Sure. I'd like to say it reminds me just a little bit of Caravaggio, the way like he took his like figures and didn't try to like clean them up or dress them up or present them in any other way than what they were. And I'm really attracted to like the texture and the kind of grittiness of this. Like, you know, the figure is not trying to be something other than, you know, what he is. And it has such a, like, there's such a powerful, compelling presence to this grave digger. And I just feel like it's technically like lit really, really well. And I do agree that it's completely timely. But again, it's almost like, I like how the color is more or less monochromatic, you know, like it's working like technically like the jeans are kind of like cool. The background's a little bit warm and you have like a warm hat. So I feel like just on that subtle kind of coloristic level, it's creating this sense of big space. Like, I mean, he could be standing anywhere. Like it just feels monumental. It has like such a huge presence to it. And again, like the grit of it is really wonderful.
And Craig, is this another one we can get a little closer look at too, first, please?
Sure. We're not going to be able to give it all in the frame, but we can do a slow pan from top to bottom.
And also this photo remind me of Sebastião Salgado, Brazilian photographer, who did his photography like laborers, worker to make major impact. So I also was looking at this photo in that direction also, because the way he looks so monumental, but he looks so weak in certain ways. So it's just how beautifully executed. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to wear good clothes to be this strong and so monumental feeling to it. So important. It's a beautifully posed, like Amy said. The pose is almost David pose, almost 1 foot out and the hands and just looking straight at it. So it's very beautifully done.
All right. So we're gonna come around the corner and come to a 3D work. All right, and we are looking at Shorty Henry's Axe by Brian Powers. Amy, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I was drawn to this piece because it has like 2 opposing forces going on. As far as I'm concerned, it has almost like this static stability to it, but then boom, it has this action on top. And I like how the two forces seem to remain, I mean, they're pretty much independent of one another. And I like how they're not like one is not melding into the other one, like aesthetically, but they're kind of remaining, they're holding their space, like the stable core, is remaining in and of itself. And this explosion is kind of like happening on top. So I really aspect of this piece.
Great. Seung?
Well, I'm not going to try to make a political statement, but it just happened to be like how everything is mechanically built up, so time consuming, everything is building up so beautifully, and the one whack can destroy everything. So please don't take it as a politically. I'm just saying how easy, whether it's a force of nature or something, can destroy certain things so quickly. See, if you look at the delicately, this whole structure is built. It's almost mechanical, like all these big buildings built. But with the one force, this can get just destroyed in one day. So I took the narrative that way, and how the mechanical things built, but the nature can just wipe out in one day. So we have to take care of our nature.
All right. So we're going to head back to the first gallery. Navigate around some of these sculptures. And come in real close to look at John Roberts' Rusting Interchange. And Seung, would you like to start us off in discussing this piece?
That was one of my kind of contemporary photographer that I really enjoy looking at. Bernard Lang, this German photographer. He's not really, I think he's in 1540s. He does a lot of beautiful just aerial shots, and I thought this piece, the way the artists play with such a core colors, like cool colors on one side, and another side is such a warm colors, and it just hard not for me to build a story that about the toxicness of it, that green, and it's just such amazingly composed, how the only natural thing is where the middle, the circular section with the green toxic water, almost like water, then all the structure surrounding it. I thought it was very beautifully done. And there has been a lot of great contemporary aerial photographers. I guess that have to do with the more accessible with the helicopters and things like that. But it's a very well done. I just love the shadow of these things that becomes such a cool, cold blues. I love the shadows on this piece.
Amy?
Yeah, the blue, cold, cool shadows are so, you can almost feel them, like they almost have a temperature to them. And I also like how on the white, it almost looks like an element of drawing, like the shadow from the, I don't know what that is, that thing right there. It kind of is casting this shadow. It almost looks like somebody took a pen and was like kind of drawing these different elements. So it has this like real clean kind of linear feeling. And then and then aesthetically, like the green, like that kind of like glassy, like, you know, on some level, it's like, yes, I know I'm looking at an aerial photograph and that's a train. And there's like all these things that I know, but as I experience it, I feel like it kind of transforms and becomes like this whole other thing. Like it's this like series of like, is that fur or hair? And is that like, I mean, they kind of transform themselves because there's information, but it's not so specific that I lock into like a definition. So I'm able to kind of be free with it. And I can go in and out of like interpretations and what it means. And then that can change. And then I can just look at it like on a purely formal level. So it's a piece that gives the viewer, me, like a lot of freedom to play with it. Because it's not like locking itself in and saying, this is what I am. It's like, it's open. And yeah, so I really appreciate it on a lot of levels.
All right. Well, thank you. So audience, we have reached the point in our discussion where it's time for questions from you to Amy and Seung. So please use the chat function. While we're waiting for some of those to pop up, I will slowly kind of give us a quick view of some of the other works in this space. And Amy and Seung, while we're waiting, if you have any comments you would like to make about any of the works that we see, just feel free to sort of blurt them out as we go.
Blurt them out.
Maybe not the best choice of words there. Sorry. But yeah, any.
I am good at that.
I know.
I love that piece, that long piece right there. I was like, what? I was like, it was like, you know, like it just, I don't know, on some level, it makes no sense. It's like, wait, this should be like this, but it's not, it's like this. So that's just kind of an interesting, like kind of experience to have when you set yourself up to think something's going to go a certain way or it should be something, and then yet it's doing something completely else. It was a surprise. I really like it.
Yeah, it just feels like a train just moving and this person just captured it kind of feeling.
Yeah.
One question that was posted was, what was the material of the piece with the axe? It is a mixed media piece. It is a mixture of wood and found axe head. So we'll
I love that. The horses were so dreamy. Like it was such an interior. That was such an interior. That to me is so like interior, dreamy. It's just something I feel like I could just look at. I mean, just really fall into. There's just it's very generous, really, as an image. And I love the dark plant. Sorry, I can't think of all these words. Next to the white horse body, it's almost like it kind of creates like the horse's kind of midsection stomach is almost like being cradled by this plant in a way. Like the plants are like, you know, somehow encapsulating or holding, you know, these horses in some way. I just love this painting. It's beautiful.
So a couple different questions have come in. First was, what is the age range of the artist in the exhibition? And this exhibition was open to anyone over the age of 18. So it is not a piece of information that we collected as part of the jurying process, but anyone 18 and over was welcome to submit. Question for both Amy and Seung. Do you feel equally attracted to 2D versus 3D works?
Good image to me doesn't matter because I started trained as a painter. I even went to Italy to study traditional painting, realistic. But later on, I met Namjoon Park, who's the video artist, and I worked with him a couple of projects. Then I just changed my mind how I should look at art as an art's sake, not as a material. So material, whether it's 2D, 3D, photography, video, it's only a vehicle. It's how you use it as an artist. To me, that's what's more important. So I don't really trying to say what's better than other or not, even though right now I'm working more two-dimensionally, but I did a lot of installation, video performances. So I really do not care as long as I can make some kind of connection with the artwork.
Amy?
I agree. I think that maybe when I was first starting out as an artist, like as a young artist in school, I might have said I prefer 2D work because that's what I was studying. That's my primary medium. But then as I develop and I grow, and my eye becomes more attuned, and I know myself more as an artist, I'm more clear on my, like, who I am and my identity. And then at some point it just opens up, and it's like, it doesn't even matter the medium, and it's just, art is art, good art is art. And I have reactions to 2D, 3D, ephemeral works, there's all kinds of stuff. So I think at some point, like Seung was saying, it's kind of like just the medium. Something else comes through. Something of the artist comes through, and the medium is just the vehicle.
All right. So a question about Julie Dixon's work we looked at earlier. What will be strikes me as a modern take on memento mori. Did the jurors get this impression, and do you think the artist intended this? We can swing back to that piece.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. So to this viewer, this particular piece strikes them as a modern take on the memento mori. Did you get impressions of this as jurors? And do you think the artist intended this?
Amy, you can go.
I don't know if the artist intended it or not. We weren't given anything except for a title, and the dimensions and the medium. So I'm not sure. I can't answer that question. I don't know what was in the artist's mind.
Yeah, I agree with you, because that's where we need to have a physical opening where we can meet the artist. We can ask. I have a lot of questions on my mind. Yes, I looked at a lot of work. I think this is what they are trying to say, but I'm not sure. So this is kind of one thing that virtual, this kind of opening is missing, is we cannot interact with the artist to ask. With the juror, we still have questions. We picked it because we think we are connected to it, but we're not sure. So it would be really nice to, in October, when we get together, to ask directly.
Yes.
Great.
I agree.
Craig, I think we have a request to look at a Doreen Beller piece. If you look on the far right, Tre Vecchi is on that far short wall, right past some of the sculptures.
Will, give me a little bit more direction.
Straight to that far wall, right past the sculpture. Yep, right ahead. Up to your left, right there, the three gentlemen sitting.
All right. Doreen Bella's Tre Vecchi gouache on paper. Any insights from Seung and Amy? Seung, do you want to go first?
Well, it is a really interesting piece in that three men got together. Only one man doesn't have sunglasses, but then two sunglasses men, they're not together. The other man is talking to the other guy. To the gentleman to the right is looking at other side. So there's always in saying, when you get three together, never works. You can always have to be group two. It just says about the cliche that if you have three friends, there's always one will be outsider. But even though these two, it's just like a narrative. It got me on this one. I was going through what is this the old man sitting there talking about? Why is this two men have sunglasses, one another one doesn't? But then one sunglass man is more close to the other guy. So it was all those kind of questioning, the dialogue that they were giving to me. So for this narrative, I thought this piece was giving me a lot of joy to come up with my own story.
That's nice. There's something about this that has, I mean, first of all, I love gouache. I love gouache. I love the way this is painted. I love the attention to detail, the attention to the folds and the material. I can tell that a lot of like care went into this. I can feel the artist's attention almost by looking at this. And there's something, I mean, for me, it looks like almost like a snapshot. It looks like a photograph on some level because it's like a casual photograph because it doesn't look staged to me. It looks like somebody just kind of walked by and took a snapshot. But then as I look at it more, the man in the middle, he has a suit. Like Seung was saying, he has a suit. And so there's something going on here. There's some kind of communication or there's something happening here like behind the scenes. It has almost like a hidden narrative that I don't know what it is, but I really appreciate like even like the way the shoes are painted. Like I noticed little bits of that. Like the leather is like kind of shiny and somebody really wanted to get like a sense of place and almost time with this. So I really enjoyed the piece.
All right. So we're gonna reverse ourselves and head over to one of the 3D works at the other end of the room. And, just props to Amy and Seung. You guys are getting lots of call outs in the chat about your insightful comments. And we're gonna go continue that. So thoughts on Paula Stern's Fair Fare for the Working Man, which is a mixed media piece.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I love this piece. It reminds me a lot of like Ed Kienholz's work where he was a Californian, Ed and Nancy Kienholz, and he would take these objects and these bits of figures and he would like smash them together and like create these huge installations, and they were always like, kind of dark and but meaningful and I just love this. It's like there's something so bold about just kind of like boom, like just kind of like plopping these two objects together. And I can sit here and interpret. I mean, it's easy to narrate this, but the head almost has has a skull kind of like sensibility to it. Like it could, without there's something that feels like a bone. Like it feels really just raw. And I look at it and it's just like, I can feel it in my gut. This is like very visceral, like right in your face, like really bold work. And it harkens back to like the Kienholz stuff. So I love it.
Yeah, that's a great reference. Yes, I got that. And also it is as a narrative, it's almost like I think everybody contemporary life we go through, you bring their suitcase to work. At some point that suitcase, that's your livelihood, but that becomes your enemy. So it's just almost like person has just had enough. So feeling like it's kind of really that suitcase being used a lot. That person is like a drain into that suitcase, trying to get out or going back in. I don't know what it is, but the story is kind of really mysterious in a sense. At first it was dark, but then more I look at it, it's like, maybe that's what I'm going through. I'm drained with all the responsibility as contemporary human. We experience this. So I really connected that way.
All right, and we're gonna navigate. All right, we have a request to talk about Kathy Wazotsky's. Sorry if I didn't get your last name perfectly correct. Distillation accessory for detachment device.
Wow. Who's feeding who? That's the first thing I looked at this. I was like, who's helping who? Who's feeding who? Who's keeping who alive? It's just. I mean, like I keep coming back to what we are going through today. It's amazing. We talk about the ventilation and being in the lock into places. These heroes come around trying to save you, but they themselves becomes the victim. So like this piece is warm and cool. So one who's supposed to be almost like a mechanic machine is more warm color. The one supposed to be human outside is more cool color. So everything is kind of reversed. I just love the play of what's alive, what's dead, and what's real, and what's not, and I just love it. The dialogue.
Yeah, I see it too as like, it's almost like the red figure is almost like a surrogate of like the green figure, the blue figure. To me, like it's almost like it's an aspect or a projected aspect of the self. And it's there also has like this relationship to like costuming and performance and performative art and theater. I really I gravitated towards this because of the sense of imagination and like kind of like invention, you know. It's like it has that kind of like Willy Wonka, that kind of like, it's not really outer space. It's kind of like a mixed genre piece that I can't quite like pin down, which is something that I feel like lends, extends the life of the painting. But it's just so like, I've never seen anything like it. It's like, I just kind of fix my eyes onto it. And yeah, I really like the way it's painted as well.
All right. So more of a general question about your jurying process. So we'll just kind of pan out. When you first take in the visuals of an artwork, do you find you focus on the big picture and narrative first, or the lines and colors? Is there a structure to the way you explore the pieces, or is it different each time?
That's a good question. Want me to go first? Okay. Yeah, okay. That's a good question, by the way. I think for me at this point in looking, because I've done years and years of making and looking, so I have a honed sensibility. I think what I do is I look for kind of a gestalt of something, like something will either hit me in a certain way or it doesn't. And when something hits me in a certain way at that point, I start to kind of break it down. Then I start kind of zoning in on like, well, why is it hitting me? I start asking myself questions. And so I start to deconstruct and look for, oh, it's the color, it's the composition, it's the content, it's the, the medium, whatever that is. And so I begin to unravel it. And the more I unravel it, the more I like it and the more it hits me. So it's this process that happens between myself and the work, that it's not like I look at it one time and that's it. I look at it one time. If I respond, that's the beginning of the relationship with the piece. So, and it's different for each piece, but it's always like a gestalt. It's always like it's an immediate thing. And then from there it unravels. So.
Yeah, I agree with you in that I try not to, I just try to look at, whenever I judge, I look at every piece quickly, all over, everything at once, very quickly. Then I will know which one just click in, like that first, we have that first sight, then you have interest. That's certain artwork have that kind of grabs me, then I will go back to that piece. Then I will look at it closely, whether it's composition or the technique or the content. But what's important is the first initial interest. That's what dictates most of the time. most of the time.
All right. Looking for more questions from the group.
So we had one question to look at, William Casper's Surrender. It's a sculpture that should be right behind you if you want to look around.
Right on the other side of the room?
Right there. Right in
Okay.
front.
All right, so we have William Casper's casted resin piece. Thoughts from our jurors?
I guess it's a yoga pose, but I, being a Buddhist, I'm so used to looking at that hand pose on one side, another hand going this way. But that's at some point, that's the reason it's so great to be an artist. This piece just reminds me that a lot of times we have to forget about everything. I just feel like we lose the control sometimes, that this is kind of things that I guess that's why people get into yoga, or I get into meditation and trying to be myself. I think that's the reason, if any audience who are here today, you are in the right track. We just being involved with the art will take you to that peacefulness, that away from this craziness around us. So this piece calms me down a lot that way, because I know it meant to be, but it doesn't matter whether proportion is off, but it really just affected me that way.
Yeah, the vulnerability of this piece is it's very touching. Like this figure, she's just like completely opened up, like she's completely vulnerable. She's like at the mercy of like something. I really love the way the neck muscles are articulated. Like you can feel like the kind of like search, in this figure. And she's like splayed open, like resisting nothing. I think it's gorgeous, really beautiful piece.
All right.
Oh.
Go, Will.
We've had a couple requests for John Landon, specifically Forsaken. It should be just on your right. A bit more further to your right. Right. And a little bit more, unless I'm very mistaken. Maybe I am very mistaken. It is a wonderful photograph of sand pouring into a room.
That is in the other room.
That is in the same wall, different room. Okay, that's good. There we go.
All right. So we have John Landon's Forsaken. It's a photographic print. I'm going to try to frame it up as best as we can. And thoughts?
Amy, you can go first on this one.
Okay, so I picked this piece. I couldn't even believe it was like sand. The sand is so transformed. It's so like sound waves. It's like an entity. It feels like there's space and breath in it. It feels like it's illuminating light. It's so strange and like unlikely. And I like the way it's like you have the tension between this like flux fluid, like, sound wave that's kind of trying to be boxed in or framed like within this room, right? And so so you have the two like opposing forces, the opposing line, and then to get like that little like kind of green door in the back, it's like very symbolic. It feels like some type of language of some sorts. But I just can't, like, I think there's like a luxury to it. like to the qualities of the colors and textures that I think is just outstanding.
This piece, it feels like the photograph of installation at the Governor's Island. There, every summer weekend, they put up this at the Governor's Island. They give this abandoned military housing. It's all worn down, and they invite artists to make an installation. And this just feels like, I know it's not there, but the way you set it up with the aged interior, with all this thing, I didn't even know it was a sand, but it does have a loose smoke. I thought it was a smoke going in and out. It's almost traveling around this. Every time I go to that Governor's Island show, I always get eerie feeling trying to think about who was there before, who lived this house, or this. I mean, it's just like amazing that you capture the memory almost about something that I don't know exactly what it is. Got lots of memory in there.
Great. I'm gonna slide us over to talk about what I see as one of the more whimsical pieces in the show. We're looking at Hot Dog Still Life, which is a photographic print by Stephanie Blumenthal. See if we can frame this up well. Thoughts? We're running short on time, so we'll keep it quick. I have two more I would like us to get to.
All right, this one looks like what we are going through now with stay-home order. All we can do is eat and look and watch that poor flower dying. No, it's a very kind of nice twist, whimsical twist to very rich traditional still life painting. I really thought it was a good mixture of time lapse of this kind of or still life with contemporary situation. Hot dog. Can you imagine putting hot dog and chips, that messy and olden days still life painting? So I love it.
It reminds me of, well, it's definitely like related to, traditional Dutch painting, where I think that they would paint like objects of value. And so in some ways it was like a metaphor for cultural value. So I see this as a really playful take on maybe the values of the culture. So I feel like it has, like there's a message to it, but in a very kind of whimsical, kind of joyful way. So yeah, it's nice.
Great. And we're going to head back into the other room for our final two questions. And the first one is of another photographic print. A little bit in contrast to the work we just looked at, same artist, but titled Red Chair. So opportunity to sort of compare and contrast the two works of hers that were made into the show.
I didn't know it was the same artist.
That's right. You guys didn't know it was the same artist. I'm sorry. It completely slipped my mind is that we didn't give you any names to work off of. So yes, these two works are from the same artist. So
Amy, you want to shoot?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like with this one, as it relates to the previous one, this feels like it's architecture. Like she's not taking a traditional like Dutch painting, but she's making a reference on architecture and design. And I guess to me, it's like it has like this kind of loneliness to it. Yeah, I think the other one had that too. There was something a little bit lonely, not in like, in a good way. It's like maybe isolation, like American isolation, American values. I don't know, something like that. But this one is, I like this piece because it just gives that sense of like something's left or something's gone. I guess it does feel a little lonely, but I like that, how that red chair really kind of like holds all of the space. It kind of punctuates like the picture plane and like everything, even though it's like over to the side, it seems like everything is kind of revolving around that red empty chair. And it's like, why is it empty? Who was there? So that's kind of how I'm like relating to this piece.
Yeah, I guess now since you mentioned it's the same artist, kind of makes sense. This artist deal with the movement and memory. So just like Amy just mentioned, it does feel like, give me the sense someone was just there, whether it was an old building or contemporary brand new building situation. So this photographer play with that really well. And also I like this piece because it's very challenging. You go against my brainwashed area. You're not supposed to do that. Ship everything to the left, but you made it work. I love it. I love work that I'm not usually accustomed to. So he's really challenges me that way. I love it.
Great. All right. I'm going to swing around. And we've had a few questions related to the work next to Julia Dixon's. This is Morgan Burns' Flamelet. It's archival ink on paper. And the questions that we were seeing are mainly about the relationship between either a color work or a black and white work. And if you particularly in your aesthetic are drawn to one more than the other, does it play a role in your selecting process? At both sort of the 30,000 foot level and then, you know, on the individual piece.
Yeah. Can I go first on this one?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, because it's right there. I just got it.
Yeah.
I love black and white work. I think that black and white, because sometimes, you know, a piece can just become about color, which is fine. Work can be about color, but sometimes it's not fine. Sometimes the black and white has a different kind of an edge to it, a different kind of a read. I feel like there's a different sensibility. I love seeing like every single mark, every single hair. There's such a, it's such an intimate, like powerful act. And I think it's, it just like really blows me away when I, you know, I can just feel the enjoyment. I mean, it feels joyful to me. Making, like I can like sense the making of this piece. And I feel like if it were color, it would become about something else. Like I would lose some of the, like the process or the making residue. Like sometimes, you know, when you look at a work, you can kind of feel how it was made. Well, that's what I'm experiencing with this. So I appreciate this is black and white and it didn't swing into color, because that brings in a whole another level of conversation.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, black and white have this, I mean, photography is exactly good. Older black and white photo, I really enjoy looking at, because sometimes we have this digital photo, sometimes they play gimmicky things too much, that you lose its authenticity of the artist. And that's why I have tendency to really value black and white, especially in Asia. It has been a very popular contemporary artist using a lot of black ballpoint pens or blue ballpoint pens. That's something it meant to be used very quick, but they create this beautiful artwork. So this piece is kind of like fits right into that kind of work that the material itself is quick, but the artwork is very sensitively done. So it's very valuable. So to me, black and white or color, it have to be used right. And this one, you used it right.
Great. Yeah, and I think that's a great comment to end it on, is that these artists used it right? Like we have a great selection of regional artists here in exploring the concept of narrative. I want to thank all of you for joining us for this brief tour. As I mentioned before, this is a recorded podcast, webinar, so this will be available on our website early next week. And then a web version of this exhibition will be available on our explore.berkshiremuseum.org as well, where you'll be able to navigate and look at all these works at a pace and a time that work for you. I want to thank Amy and Seung for joining us this evening. You guys did a fabulous job. This is really insightful. And I can't wait to get you both into the museum when we hang the physical show and have deeper conversations and more conversations around what we've seen here so far. So thank you both.
I can't. Thank you.
Thank you. It was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. I can't wait to meet the artists.
Yeah, same here. Make sure you have some wine.
Yep. Thank you all, and have a great Saturday night.
Yay. Thank you, Craig. Thank you so much. Thank you, William.
Thank you, everybody. That was beautiful.
Everybody. Okay.
All right.